So you're the man with the answers. Everybody else has signed non-disclosures down.
Yeah, I know.
So what can you tease us and tell us about your show?
It's going to be awesome. You know, the trailer that came out today has a lot of clues in it. If you watch it closely, there's a ton of clues that will sort of tell you things. Especially for the Heroes fans that can recognize certain symbols and all that kind of stuff. You know, the show picks up 5 years exactly, you know, from when we left off. It picks up exactly where the audience is. So the audience is 5 years later, and the show is that same amount of time has transpired. And the world is an extremely different place than it was when nobody knew about these powers. And that becomes a kind of almost obligatory story about, well, what does the world do with people with knowing about people with powers? And in the first series, at the end of the series, Hayden Panettiere and her father, Jack Coleman's character, had many discussions about the whole idea of being out with these powers, and her wanting to, and him telling her that the world would not accept us, and sure enough, 5 years later, it's come to pass. So there is a much darker, more thriller kind of quality, because they truly are persecuted and hunted, and it changes the tone of the show.
Is that where you had always meant for the story to go, or has some, you know, the 5 years in between changed how you were going to do it?
It's a little bit of both. The truth is, there are elements of what we would have done in fifth season. But I think we would have gone through that stage of the world turning on them. We would have sort of unpacked that a little bit more had we had a fifth season. And we would have seen the slow devolving of acceptance into persecution. And but by jumping 5 years, we skipped over that part, and there is a seminal event that happened a year prior to our story starting. And that event really turned the world against these people for real, in a huge way. And that is the event that gets kind of, you know, dissected and figured out what really happened on that day. And I think it's kind of in the trailer. There's a little piece of that.
We actually see that event.
You will, yeah. We will get over the course of the 13 episodes. You'll get a pretty clear idea of what happened. You know.
When working with NBC and bringing Heroes back and so on, was there? I don't know how much you can say about it, but you know, was there? Did they ask you to have like, you know, like a 5-year plan? You know, in case you know, I know they're saying as an event miniseries, but you know. Let's say that this, you know, like you said, it's going to be awesome, it's going to be successful and all that. Let's say that they want season 2 of Heroes or season 6 of Heroes, whatever.
Well, I mean, right now, the only thing we have talked about is this 13-episode event, and that's how I wanted to approach it. That's how NBC wanted to approach it, and the truth about the brand, if anybody, I mean, the Heroes brand was always able to reinvent characters, to always repopulate. And the premise is very much about, you know, a sort of indeterminate amount of people out there who have powers, and the world always needs saving. So it seems like those two things you can actually keep coming up with characters and stories to repopulate and to regenerate. And in many ways, we did this in the first series, where we tried to tell it in volumes. That had a beginning, a middle, and end, for just this reason, so that we could constantly reinvent and reinvent and reinvent. And so, you know, obviously in success, I do believe that the brand and the franchise is malleable enough and broad enough that we can come up with you know, other stories and other characters that need to save the world. So I think it is a brand that can continue to do that.
Are you approaching this series differently from when you first started?
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, you learn a lot by making 80 episodes of television, definitely. The one thing that is different is this number of episodes. The idea of having a beginning and a middle and an end in 13 episodes means that you can tell story in a very aggressive way, because you know where your end point is. One of the problems with a long-running serialized show is that you have to build in kind of, what we used to call the art of the stall. You have to drag things out because you had 4 more episodes, to get to episode 23 or whatever. This really does dictate a very different kind of storytelling, and in some ways it's really refreshing to tell a story that way. And as we see, the audience really, I think, has decided that the audience has decided they really like these, especially with serialized shows, to be done in these smaller chunks, more contained chunks.